You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Today I'm here with Esta H, who is currently consulting as a brand messaging architect. So I guess people want to know what that is, but it'd be also great to know sort of what your journey was and how you arrived at a brand messaging architect. Because what I love about it, from what you explained to me, is that it sort of bridges both sales and marketing.
I'm glad you used the word bridge. That was great. Yes. So brand messaging architect, what I find with, I really don't tell people that's what I do. I tell people that I give them a C-suite. I give them clarity and confidence and consistency in their messaging so they attract their ideal clients, right? And that's what you want to do. You want to inspire them into action. And once they have that clarity, you have confidence and vibrancy in your voice. You know how to talk about what you want to offer, and you know who you're offering it to in your ideal client. And, you know, where this all started, I think we talked about this at one point or earlier today, was, do you remember when you were a child and you had a picture and it had a bunch of dots on it, and then you had to connect the dots before you knew what the picture was? Absolutely. That's what I've been doing my whole life. I've just been connecting those little dots to see where they go. And right out of school, I worked at a private psych facility. It was an inpatient facility, short term. You know, I just took those skills, and, you know, I think part of it's innate. I think the most important skill or ability that you can have in everything, specifically in marketing, is your ability to gain trust. So that was my superpower when I worked at that psych facility. Because once I had the knowledge, once you gain trust, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. We had interns there from Harvard and Wellesley, and if you can't make the connection, you can't do the work, right? And that rolls into everything. That rolls into marketing. You know, marketing isn't about pushing your message out. It's about bringing people in. And I think a lot of people miss that. So what I've been doing is collecting a lot of dots. And I had this epiphany. Well, there were two turning points with my dots on my picture. One was I worked with a nonprofit in New York called iCouldBe.org. It was an online career e-mentor network with underserved teens. E-Trade, how to create a program for underserved communities throughout the country to connect mentors and underserved teens to create this mentoring program. So I built the program. I recruited, hundreds of mentors, and I had 1,000 kids. I had to get every school signed up. And it was sad because some of the schools couldn't sign up for the program because they didn't have the budget. But even though, I don't want to say budget, I'm going to back up. It really wasn't the budget. The kids couldn't get up to a certain bar, so they couldn't take the program on. So E-Trade would sponsor the program, but these schools couldn't get the kids up to the certain bar so they could take on an additional learning experience. So this was back in, I think, 2005. And this is as the internet was starting to come into existence and to be. And it was that power of reaching out to 1,000 kids and hundreds of mentors. They're all listening to me. They're all listening to my directive. And I was like, that was an aha moment. Like, oh my God, and especially with kids, because I love empowering, children to succeed. So that was my aha moment. I was just like, oh my God, power for good, right? So I'm very into superheroes and Star Wars and all that. So I'm just like, yes, I do. My cat's name is Padme, and that's, a whole other thing. But yes, and I believe in the Force, and I do believe, and we'll get into that later, I think. But I do believe in energies and putting out the energy and creating the energy and bringing the energy in. And that's what I think marketing is about. So I've been collecting dots. That was like a major dot for me. It was, the hospital was great. My dad grew up in the Bronx. I'm very street and intuitive, but getting the academics and then getting the experience at the psych facility, working with, children and multiple personalities. It's like, all different types of challenges. And it was a fantastic experience. And then after that, I worked in nonprofit and development and, various jobs, lots of dots. But that E-Trade, the E-Trade gig was definitely my turning point. And then regarding the messaging, I'll just say this one thing. Regarding the messaging, I don't know how many people listening have been to a networking event and somebody says, "Hi, my name is, what do you do?" And they say what they do. And then a moment later, that person is kind of looking over their shoulder, like, who can I talk to that's more interesting or better? Is there a better connection for me to make out there? This is just kind of flat, And we've all experienced it, right? Because you don't have down really, partly it's what you offer, right? You're not really clear on it. So you don't have that vibrancy in your voice. You're not compelling them to listen, and you're sounding like everybody else. Somebody says they're a coach, I'm over your shoulder. I'm a coach. Okay, gotta go. So, right. So that was my second aha moment. My first was, wow, I could reach the masses. And if I had to leap forward to that defining dot with brand messaging, it is in that moment where at the networking events, I'm looking over people's shoulders because it has to be somebody more interesting with a more compelling message that's making me want to stay. So I think that's where I think the most important thing is. I do other things, but I really want to help empower people with that messaging. Your messaging is, important. It empowers you and empowers the people that you're drawing to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, when marketers and C-suite members think about brand and brand messaging, they might first think about brand messaging as it relates to a consumer product. Then they might think about brand messaging as it relates to a B2B product or service. And then only third will they think about personal branding, right? And the reality is that for many professions and many businesses and for many people in marketing or sales roles, those three things layer on top of each other, whether they're a B2C or a B2B marketer, but then they have their personal branding message that they also need to get clear on, right? Not necessarily the company branding message. So how do you help people sort of walk that line between sort of, the what do you do question, right, relates to both what does that individual do and what value do they provide to a greater ecosystem, but it also relates potentially to their company pitch. But usually people don't want to hear the company pitch, right?
Nobody wants to hear the company pitch.
Personal about the individual and how the individual contributes to society.
Every person they have on their website, mission. I want everybody out in this audience to raise their hand. How many people read everybody's mission statement on every website? Nobody. There's nobody reading mission statements. So, people make connections through people, period. You have to touch something. The person has to relate to something you're offering. It's not that, wow, this is the best computer, or wow, this is, it has to be a connection, right? And, with regards to your messaging, when I do, so I develop the C-suite. I will develop a C-suite. I will work with you on your messaging. And what I do is take you through a process, right? We go through your purpose. And then we go through your vision, and then we go to your mission. So what are you actually doing to support your, purpose and your vision? Like, how are we doing that? And then we go through your values. What are our values that are supporting that process and how we exist and why we exist? And that's what people are connecting to. They're connecting to your values. It's like, that's your people connection. It's like, what am I? Yes, that company gets me. So if I have two companies sitting here in product A and product B, this person gets me. This product may not be like, maybe it's at 99% and that product's 100%, but I'm definitely going with the 99 because that person gets me. So right. I'm going to step aside and I'm going to go to that other, to that company who gets me. Everything you do in your life is relationships, and it's gaining trust, and it has to be done with integrity. It doesn't have to be done with strategy. It shouldn't be done with strategy. And that's why you explore your values. That's why we sit through sessions. And that's why we'd say, okay, well, what do I value? And how is this applying to what I'm trying to do in terms of my vision, and what my purpose is? And this is how people are going to relate. And this is what's going to catch their eye. And this is what's going to get them from stop looking over your shoulder. And they're going to listen to what you have to say, because now you're invested. You're invested with your values, and they're invested because you're invested.
Right.
And now you have a conversation, right? And that's I just think it's the one thing that people miss. They're so marketing, marketing, marketing. How does it look? How does it feel? How many platforms, how many times? No, it could be very simple, and people are overwhelmed, and they want simple, and they want someone to care about them, and they want somebody to listen to them.
Well, networking events for a while obviously had been on the back burner for everybody,
Right.
unless you were to count the sort of virtual networking events like Lunch Club, right, which went virtual and went digital, which
Right.
was a pretty interesting pivot for them. But, given that networking events are back and people may never have had the skills in the first place, but and there may
Right.
be a
That's a
new
great point.
generation of folks coming, into networking events for the first time because, they graduated from school in 2019, right? And so they never really had an opportunity to network before. So what are some common mistakes that people make at networking events?
I think that when they're again trying to push their message out. Maybe they're working for a company, and the company says, I want you to have 20 touch points, or I want you to come back with 50 business cards, or whatever the goal is, if they're working for somebody. Or if they're by themselves, they could be a little too hungry, right? And getting in front of too many people instead of, taking a breath and stepping back. And I'm just going to, give them a pass and say, look, just go have a good time. Just go meet some people, go have a conversation, express interest in somebody else, ask them about their company and their product, instead of having that pitch and trying to push yourself on somebody because you're either obligated to, or, and if you're working for a manager and the manager says, well, how many people? I've had 20 touch points. That means you didn't do 20 pitches. That means you met 20, people. And your goal, with regards to networking, really what I do when I'm not, if I'm going to a networking event, if I have the opportunity to see on a website who is attending, I say, well, what makes sense for me? This person, or this person or company. If it's a company, who's going to be attending from that company? So there could be 300 people there. Let's say I'm not going to put pressure. I'm only going to do 3. Who are my 3 pie in the sky people I want to meet? And then I'm going to see who they're about on LinkedIn. And then I'm going to see if I'm connected to them on LinkedIn. Then I'm going to reach out to them. And I'm going to say, hi, my name is da-da-da. I noticed you're attending da-da-da. Would love to shake your hand. Period. Not, I'd love to pitch you. I'd love to share this. Love to shake your hand. Right? Yeah. No pressure. No pressure. I just love to shake your hand. And I think just enjoying meeting people. I mean, just taking the pressure off, but having a goal, right? You say, okay, I'm going to look, I'm going to prep, I'm going to go to the website, but then do some due diligence. Say, okay, if these are my 3 pie in the sky companies that I want as a client or, to sell service to, I'm going to get in front of A, B, or C. And, I'm going to reach out I definitely would reach out to them on LinkedIn. I do prep work before I go. So I don't go blind and just walk around just shaking hands and looking at name tags, right? It's like, wait a minute, you're looking at name tag, then you're looking it up, like, what company are they with, or who are they, or
right
on LinkedIn real quick. It's not, you want to enjoy the process. I mean, networking is also meant to be fun. And again, there's a balance, right? You might have a boss, like you said, if someone's 19 or they're just out or they've never been to a networking event. I could easily see it being overwhelming. They're walking into a room full of people, they don't know what to do or where to go. And this is where I think maybe, starting with, going on LinkedIn and saying, hi, I'm going to be at this event. I know, you're going to be there. I'd love to swing by, give you a handshake. That's it. Like, don't, panic them. Oh my gosh, I have to have a conversation with this kid. Just
the other thing that I think people forget is that they forget that one good conversation is better than 50 mediocre ones.
100%.
Right? And that when you include in that sort of epiphany the fact that a person you're speaking to, their best friend or their college roommate or their spouse or significant other may end up being the perfect person for you. Right, to just judge the person by their cover, i.e. their LinkedIn profile or their name tag, is really short-sighted, right?
Correct.
Because if you're having a fun conversation, they may have their own internal thing like, oh, wow, you should definitely talk to my cousin. My cousin works at so-and-so, or my cousin would need exactly what it is that you do. But that thing that you do probably should be in the last eighth of the conversation, not the first 20 seconds, right? Because you need to get your way there with the story or with a fun conversation.
Right.
Do you think people should have prepackaged stories and or pitches, or do you think they should just learn to be sort of more spontaneous at these events?
I think that they need to be prepared mentally, because they could be hit with that question. They could, have a good vibe, but they could be connected. And somebody may say, you have that handshake and you're like, wow, you have a good connection. And they might say, hey, what do you do? Like, I might say, I give you a C-suite. And people in their head might think, CEO, COO. No, I give you clarity, confidence, and consistency in your messaging. It compels people to listen to what you have to say. It's in my head, right? I get people from looking over your shoulder to looking at your calendar. If you say something like that, people are like, oh, well, how do you do that?
Right.
Your only goal is to have a conversation, and get people to that point. I never say I'm a brand messaging architect. I know what I do. It defines me, but I don't need to say it to you. I don't need to say it to anybody. I empower you with the messaging that attracts, and compels people to listen to what you have to say. And I'm going to backtrack just because you mentioned young people with regards to networking. I was big into Twitter for years. I backed off a little bit. I'm still curating. But there was a kid that I met who was going to meet Steve Case, the founder of AOL, and he's going to a meeting. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you going to wear? First of all, this kid said, I haven't thought about it. A woman would have thought about it, hours, weeks, years before, right? Last year, oh my God, I'm going to meet with Steve Case. I said, well, what are you going to talk to him about? Well, they just acquired this and they just acquired that. And his name's Forrest. Now I'm remembering. And I said, no. I said, you're not going to, I said, every kid going into that meeting is going to do their due diligence on what the company has done. And they're going to talk to him about that. And he will never remember you again. I said, I want you to look up his philanthropy. I want you to see if you can find his favorite basketball team. I want you to see what his favorite color is. I don't care. Anything other than business. And I said, you dress for your environment. I said, what are you going to wear? He didn't know. I said, khakis on, a sweater or whatever. And then he texted me from the meeting as Steve Case walked in. Oh my God, he's wearing the same thing I'm wearing. It was hysterical. But he made that connection. And that's what I try to encourage people to do. Connect with the person, not the company or the product. Connect with the person. That would be my biggest advice. Don't push your message out. Bring the person in, right? What do you have to offer that's going to help that person? And you have to do it with integrity. You do it with planning and you do it with integrity. You reach out and you do simple acts, right? I was, when I worked at that hospital, I worked with the nurse manager and she was single. And she said she's going on this weekend and she wants to meet somebody. And what do I talk about? And this woman never smiled. And I said, Kitty, you were way ahead of yourself. I said, your only goal this weekend is to smile. That's it. Like no questions, no conversations. And she came back like I gave her $5 billion. It was that simple, Kevin. It was that simple. It's like walk into a room and smile at somebody. Put out your hand. It's that simple. Take out the pressure. Say, hey, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to be prepared. If you're prepared and you know who you want to meet and you know some of their background, you're prepared to have a conversation. The goal would be ideally is to get, a meeting afterwards, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, say, look, we don't need to talk here. If you have 15 minutes next week, half an hour, if they like you, look, it's going to go beyond 15 minutes. It'll go an hour, whatever. Right. But the goal is not to put someone under pressure, right? You give them a hand. Can I have a handshake at the thing? Great. I can deal with a handshake. Can I do this? Sure. But be comfortable in your own skin. Be prepared with what you want to talk about and always put the other person first. Always express interest first, right? In what they're doing, what they're about.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about your people-centric networking strategies is that many people are in industries that are not inherently exciting, right? I mean, or not to their prospects at least, right?
Right.
So if you're in law or you're in accounting or you're in insurance, that's not interesting to most of your prospects. I mean,
The
maybe
word would
it
be
is, but it
boring.
usually isn't.
The word would be boring. I can get away with it just because of my personality, but when somebody says I do insurance and I literally say boring, accounting, boring,
Right,
I literally will, or I'll meet them and I'll say, I'm looking over your shoulder,
right.
it's
Yeah.
just not, and this
So,
one woman
so
I met, she said, oh, I do accounting, but I don't say I'm an advisor. I say I'm something else. I said, but you said the word accounting. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I'm over your shoulder.
right.
So, I mean, honestly, the easiest, you have, if you have, like my brother, I'm going to give you the simplest one. My brother has a small cleaning supply company and he sells warewashing systems and, to schools and churches. And he did happen at one time, which he still does, sells to every single major league and minor league baseball team. Their pine tar remover, helmet polish, helmet cleaner, everything. But when he meets people, he says, I sell cleaning supplies. Now I'm over your shoulder and you're over his shoulder and there's cleaning supplies everywhere and I'm going to go on Amazon. Right. But what he really is good at is the customer service. And he is really good at, you can call me anytime and I'll be there. And you don't get that with a company or a big company or an Amazon or Costco, whatever. He's
Right.
like, he'll install systems in ShopRites or whatever. But, I said, well, what's the one most important thing to people you're working with? He said they want free time. I said, you know what? You're going to say to him, and I pulled this up for him, I free up your time by giving you more effective and cost-efficient cleaning supplies and on-demand customer service. Instead of saying I sell cleaning supplies, I free up your time. That's it. That's all they care about. I care about you. I'm freeing up your time. How am I doing that? I'm giving you, and they also want cost effective and cost efficient. And if they have a team, they want their team to be done in an hour, not 2 hours. So, and if you have a problem, I'm there. I get in my car and I come. So you're giving them a small pitch. Instead of saying cleaning supplies, you're saying, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you free time, So there are ways to think about how you're giving, again, the person that you're talking to a benefit. You're not saying, this is what I do. I sell cleaning supplies, plus it's boring. And if you're an accountant, I help you make more money. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'm really good at accounting and this is how I do it.
Right.
But I think labeling yourself, there's a lot of BNIs. Have you've been to a BNI or what?
Not in ages.
Not in ages, but they're painful. I think they're painful. And a friend of mine actually calls it a cancel culture because you're just looking to cancel out every person who's standing up talking.
Process of elimination.
Right. And when he said that, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you're right. And I can't look at it any other way now. It's like, it's a cancel culture, and he created a completely different space where you connect. His name is Jeff Pulver, which I might have spoken to you about, but he created this networking group and is in the height of COVID with a lot of high powered people, intelligent, and a diverse community from teachers to authors to newspaper people. But when you get to that group, he doesn't ask you what you do. He says, what is your passion? And that's where the conversation starts. And he understands people connect with people.
Yep. No,
and
Jeff's
then
great.
you get
I
to
know
put your
Jeff.
stuff in your chat and your LinkedIn and whatever. But that's where you're connecting, right? And that's where it all comes back to. You really need to be present-minded. You need to say, okay, I care about the person I'm talking to right in front of me. And what does that person care about?
Absolutely. I think that also bridges into my next question, which is not everybody who has to sometimes wear the business development or sales hat is comfortable in that role, right? They may be a little bit shy. They're not comfortable, being proactive in starting conversations. And they may even think of themselves as introverted, although some of the best salespeople I've ever met would probably be classified as introverts. So along with that, can sales charisma be taught? Can is it innate or is there always like a spark of something that with training you can bring to the surface there or tools that you can give to somebody to sort of make them more comfortable in their own skin from that perspective?
I think charisma is innate. I think you're born with it. And I think it's an energy that attracts people to you. But it doesn't mean it's necessary to bring people to you. I think attracting people to you and bringing to you are separate. And I think that, I don't think it'd be taught, but you have your own superpower. So if it's not charisma, let's think about it, right? You might go into a networking event, and when we're talking about connecting through, some commonalities, you might see somebody who's interested in astronomy and you're in astronomy, and then you connect with them on that conversation and not have pressure to connect on a business level. It goes back to it's a perfect example I gave you with Kitty, where she said, well, what do I talk about? And what do I say? And I'm really nervous. And she was definitely an introvert. I said, you're way ahead of yourself. I said, just go. All I want you to do is smile. And if you can walk into a networking event and just look at somebody and smile, I promise you one of those people will put out their hands and say, hi, my name is, because you're disarming people when you smile. You're completely disarming them. And you're opening yourself up. And they're going to reach out to you. And it'll take pressure off you. It'll be just like smile, boom. Hi, Kevin. Wow, this looks like a really nice guy. Hi, my name is Esta. Hi, my name is Kevin. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? And that, for people who are afraid, that's kind of how it usually goes. Are you having fun? Did you go to any good breakouts? It's a conversation. It's just an exchange of words. I think the biggest takeaway is don't look at it as a one big pitch, and to have fun and to care about the relationships that you're potentially going to build, and smile. I just think you should smile and put out a hand, and that's it. And everything else will come. That will be your superpower. If I had to say you're going to have a superpower, it's going to be smile and put out your hand. And that's it. And everything else will come.
Yeah, I agree. And the events, it doesn't happen as often as it should in the BNIs that I had attended 10 years ago. But there were the people who were there to give, and the people who were there to ask, right? And it was the givers who made the positive impressions, because they would be more about, who can I introduce you to that's here, especially if they're like a person who would attend a lot of them, right? They would actually try to be the connector, or they would try to be the connector even because of their LinkedIn profiles or something else they could bring to the table, because then you leave with a very positive perspective on that individual, because the chances that anybody there is going to need exactly what it is that you do are pretty close to zero, to be
correct.
perfectly
I
honest,
agree with
right?
you 100%.
So your chances of catching somebody at the exact time that their current ad agency screwed up, or that their current accounting firm raised their prices, or that their current law firm was too slow in getting back to them on a red line on a contract. I mean, what are the chances of those things happening, the day before the networking event? Pretty low. So
that's a fantastic point.
And
that takes pressure of everybody who's listening right now. That takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of you.
Yeah.
Right. So if you had to just go, look, you want to meet people, you want to make connections, and you want to hopefully get a client. But it's only going to start if you're relaxed, enjoying yourself. If you're confident, you don't have to know your pitch or your messaging. You have to know your pitch or your messaging, but it's not something you have to share when you're there, right? You have to be prepared, right? And if you're going there and you have 3 pie in the sky, pick three people at the conference you would like to meet, and keep your eyes open, and then just smile and put out a hand, and that's it. I think if I keep going back to what you said, the 2 points of, we haven't been in networking events in a long time. And there are kids out of college that are coming that are now getting jobs, and they don't know how to be in a networking event. So that's what I would say. You made a terrific point. It's likely you're not going to walk away with anything, and that's okay.
Yeah. So the connection is what you walk away, and then the smile.
Exactly.
Right.
But you're not walking away with a deal. Don't expect to walk away with a deal.
I don't expect to walk away with a
meeting. It's like you're not going to walk away with a deal. You're not going to walk away with a meeting, but you could walk away with a couple of really powerful connections that lead to meetings, that lead to conversations, that lead to a deal. But it only starts with a smile and a handshake and preparation. So if you prep, you have your messaging. I would reach out before you go to these networking events, and then, and just be who you are. I mean, that is your superpower. Be who you are.
Yeah,
Authenticity.
exactly.
Authenticity. Yeah.
Well, I think we've given folks some great tools to go back out and network either in person or virtually. I don't know if Jeff Pulver has gone back to his breakfasts or not. I haven't received any
He does them
notifications.
online. So
I know he
does
does them online, but
online.
I don't know if at some point he's going to go back to the in-person ones or not. But you can network online and you can network offline, but the mission is the same, right? Help other people and connect.
It's just be authentic, be yourself, use your superpower, smile, and handshake. People will like you. They will like you, and they like you, they'll listen to you. And once your messaging is clear and you're confident and you have that vibrancy in your voice, you're going to compel them to listen, and it's going to move forward. And I believe in you. I believe in every person who's listening.
Absolutely. Well, Esta, thanks so much for joining me and giving some education to folks who are maybe getting ready to jump back into in-person networking or jumping into new networking groups online, because it's definitely an important part of the overall marketing mix and the overall way of building a personal brand and a company brand.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. I appreciate the invitation. It was fun.
Likewise.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.